35. Sa plants, there are 12, and sa fungi, there are 7. But today is we're going to only discuss the 9 major phylum sa animal kingdom. So to start with, we have the phylum Porifera. So yung phylum Porifera, these are the sponges, and it is also the lowest form of multicellular animals. So it is the lowest form because they don't have organs, they don't have digestive tracts, and they don't have well-defined tissues unlike other animals. They have spicules or sponging fibers or both, or may pores sila which is organized into system canals. Meron for entrance of the water, for food intake nila, and meron din for exit of waste products sa body nila. So, yung first class ng Porifera is the Calcarea. Meron siyang spicules. Yung spicules is yung structural component ng sponges. So, it is made of calcium carbonate. It may be 1, 2, or 3, or 4 layers. Then, yung next class niya is Hyalospongia, or ito yung tinatawag na glass sponges. And meron silang silicose spicules, meaning their spicules are made of silica, and it is usually 6-rayed. For the third one, we have the Demospongiae. They have internal skeletons, which may be made of silica or sponging fiber or both. Then next is yung number 4 is Sclerospongiae. Yung Sclerospongiae naman, they have hard internal skeletal they have hard internal skeleton that is composed of aragonite or mineral that is made of calcium carbonate. So yung pictures nakikita nyo sa number 1, that is an example of the first class Calcarea. Then the number 2 is the Yellowspongia. Number 3 is the Demospongia. And number 4 is the Sclerospongiae. So to answer the table 1, both Leucosolenia and the Grantia are Calcarea, and only Euplectelia aspergillum is Yellowspongia, and the rest, the Spongilia, Eospongia officinalis, and Leodermatium are Demospongiae. So yung nasa sa pinaka-top picture is yan yung um, Leucosolenia. Then yung sa baba niya is yung Grantia, yung parang medyo semicircle siya. And yung sa next sa kanya yung parang nag-iisang kulay white, yan yung Hilospongia or yung Euplecta aspergillum. Then yung green sa baba, that is the Spongilia. Then yung next sa kanya is yung Spongia officinalis. Then yung pinaka-last na picture is yung Leodermatium. Then for the questions, what are the spicules? Parang ano yung purpose ng spicules sa sponges? So yung spicules, it serves as a structural component ng sponges, and it is composed of silica or calcium. They also provide support. They also provide protection to the body of the sponges from their predators. They enhance reproduction success, and they also catches prey of the sponges. So for the number 2, how are sponges classified? So as we mentioned earlier, there are 4: the Calcarea, Hyalospongia, Demospongiae, and Sclerospongiae. Then for the number 3, why are some sponges considered as the simplest form of animal? So as we mentioned, it is the lowest form of multicellular animals kasi they don't have organized organ system or even tissues. They only have a group of cell that works together, pero wala silang mouth, wala silang heart or brain sa katawan nila. So unlike other animals, sponges are also stationary, and they're not moving from one place to another. Next phylum is the phylum Nidarian. Yung phylum Nidarian, they have a stinging cells or yung nidocytes. There are approximately 9,000 species and mostly marine animals, and they have two body forms. First is yung polyps, which is yung sa third picture nakita nyo, it is attached sa surface, and yung next is medusa or yung typical itsura ng jellyfish na parang may tentacles siya. Then for the classes, it has three. First is hydrozoa, example niya yung sa first picture, then scyphozoa and anthozoa. Then for the table number 2, the Hydra, Obelia are both hydrozoa, and yung Nephthya, Isis, and Metridium are anthozoa, and only acromitoids are hydrozoa. So yung pinaka first picture na kita niyo sa medyo taas part, upper right, if I'm right, upper right, yan yung Hydra. Then yung nasa baba niya is parang jellyfish na parang transparent, yan yung Obelia. Then wala akong mahanap na picture ng Nephthya. Pero yung next sa kanya is the acromitoids. Then yung pinaka-last is yung Metridium. Wala din ako mahanap for Isis. Yeah, so for the questions, number 1, what benefits do Nidarians get from the possession of a germ layer? So yung Nidarians, it is called a diploblastic animals kasi they only have two germ layers, which is the endoderm and the ectoderm. So yung endoderm and yung ectoderm layer, they will develop eventually into certain tissue types animal. So yung cells that aids in collecting food and the cells that release mucus can be found in ectoderm or yung outer layer, and then yung cells that create digestive enzymes and break down foods particles is nahanap naman sa endoderm. Then for the second question, what are the significant features that makes Phylum Cnidaria a more advanced group than the sponges? So as we mentioned earlier, yung Cnidarians, meron silang stinging cells that helps them catch their prey and protect themselves from the predator. And also, yung stinging cells, ito yung tinatawag na cnidocytes. Yung cnidocytes, they have nematocysts. It is a long coiled tubular harpoon-like structure that can poison and hook a potential prey. And yung, in addition, unlike sa sponges, yung Cnidarian is they have a well-formed digestive system and they can carry out extracurricular digestions. They have also muscle tissues na wala yung sponges that make them more advanced compared doon sa sponges. For the third question is, what structural characteristic differentiate the various classes of Cnidarians? So we have mentioned earlier that Cnidarians is divided into three classes, the Hydrozoa, Scyphozoa, and Anthozoa. So yung Hydrozoa, their structure is they have polyp, or yung tulad nung sa anemone, yung sa first picture, yung bahay ni Nemo, it's connected sa surface. Then with medusa or with velum or both, pwede siyang connected siya sa surface or may polyp siya, then meron din siyang parang tentacles na nagsisting. Next is yung Scyphozoa. Scyphozoa, it's mainly medusa. So ito yung typical jellyfish na nagpo-float, parang may bell-like na ulo siya, then may medusa or tentacles siya na nagmumove. Then lastly is yung Anthozoa. They are only polyp, tulad nung anemone or yung bahay ni Nemo. So now let's proceed with the third phylum, which will be discussed by my groupmate.
Good morning, everyone. So the platyhelminthes or the flatworms, these are the unsegmented worms with three gem layers, which are the ectoderm, mesoderm, and the endoderm. And these worms are dorsoventrally flattened, means body is flat from lower to upper as well, from lower surface and the upper surfaces. And they are also hermaphroditic, which means they possess both male and female reproductive organs, structures, or tissues. This is also the lowest phylum that mark bilateral symmetry, in which similar anatomical parts arranged on opposite sides of a median axis, which can also divide the individual into essentially identical halves. And some are free living, while others live on, some are free living and are largely endoparasitic in a variety of animals, and having two or three hosts in their life cycle. So there are three classifications of phylum Platyhelminthes: the class Turbellaria, Trematoda, and Cestoda. The class Turbellaria, ito yung sa first picture. These are free living flatworms that lack hooks and suckers. They are also they are mostly aquatic and free living, but occasionally they live on land and or as parasites. With They have cellular epidermis of which the cells contain rhabdites. Ito yung rod-shaped bodies containing poisons. Examples are the common name for these flatworms is also known as the planarians. The class Trematoda, which is seen in the second picture, with these are the worms with suckers for attachment, and they're all parasitic, mostly endoparasites and other surface with secreted cuticle, usually devoid of cilia, generally called flukes, and they are internal parasites of mollusks and vertebrates. Last is the class Cestoda. They are extremely endoparasitic with no digestive tract, and its body is covered with cuticle that lacks cilia also, and its flattened body usually form into many short sections, hence named tapeworms. So the head-like part of the tapeworm is called the scolex, which is the suckers rather, by which the animals attach to tissues, and followed by the short sections in the neck, the proglottids. So the for the table 3, the planaria is in class Turbellaria, the Fasciola hepatica in class Trematoda, and the Taenia solium in class Cestoda. What For the question part, the first question: what makes planaria a more advanced animal than the cnidarians? Flatworms or the planaria are more advanced than cnidarians because they have all three germ layers: the troplo, troploblastic, flames, flame cell excretory system, nerve center and nerve net instead of no nerve center and nerve ladder of Cnidaria, and has incredible regeneration system, the auricles for sensing vibration and eye spots for sensing light. Which has more complicated life cycle, planaria or fluke? Why? Flukes, like other parasitic flatworms, have complex life cycles, often involving two or more host organisms than those of planaria or the Dugesia. Planarians are free-living flatworms and have a much simpler life history, and they inhabit freshwater and are also carnivores, even without teeth or scavengers. For the third question, why are parasitic worms not digested in the digestive tract of the host? Due to their parasitic mode of life, these worms completely lost their digestive apparatus but have a well-developed reproductive system and special organs that help them attach to the host tissues. They also needed mechanism to protect themselves from intestinal substances, especially from digestive enzymes. So for the next phylum, the phylum Nemathelminthis, um, from the word nematos or thread and helminthis worm. So these are the thread worms, or commonly called threadworms or roundworms. and unsegmented. They are also pseudocoelomates, which means these are the invertebrates such as nematodes or rotifer, having a body cavity that is pseudocoelom, a body cavity that lies between mesodermal and endodermal tissue, not completely surrounded by mesodermal tissue. They have evolved a complete digestive tube and a nervous system composed of the brain and the nerve cords. They are organized on the organ system level. The male and female are distinct in a sense that the male nematodes are usually smaller than female and have often curved tail. This term is called hermaphrodites. The members of the phylum are either free-living or parasites, and their sizes varies from microscopic to about 300 millimeters in length. The common examples for this phylum are roundworms, intestinal, whipworms, pinworms, hookworms, filarial worms, and vinegar eels. These these phylum Nemathelminths have two classes: class the class Adenophoria and Phasmidia. The next slide, please. The class Adenophoria or Aphasmidia has no phasmid or the causal sensory organ and has amphids, the anterior sense organs, are large. They are also thin. Excretory system has is about is absent, or if present, it is poorly developed. There also has they are the class the Aphasmidia also has well developed mesenterial tissue and causal adhesive glands are present. These mesenterial tissue are continuous set of tissues attached in abdomen, and these are at yun. Next is the se, class sen, se, Caesarentea or the phasmidia. The phasmids are present and the amphids are pore-like. They also have well-developed excretory system, and their mesenterial tissue is weakly developed, and they have no caudal adhesive glands. So in the table for the Trichinella spiralis or the larva is in Adenophoria or the Aphasmidia, and the Encyclostoma duodenale is in class Phasmidia, and the Ascaris lubricoides is in class Aphasmidia. For the question part, give the principal differences between the flatworm and the roundworm. Flatworms belong to the phylum Platyhelminthes, while roundworms belong to phylum Nematoda. The main difference between flatworms and roundworms is that flatworms consist of a dorso-ventrally flattened body, whereas roundworms consist of a cylindrical body tapered to a fine point at each end. Next slide. How is sexual dimorphism illustrated in the roundworm? The female and male sexes are separated in ascaris, and these roundworms also show sexual dimorphism. Males are smaller than females, and they have curved tail with one pre- and post-anal papillae, cloaca, and a pair of spicules. The gonads are long, tubular, and coiled, and the gonads are attached in the genital pore in females and at the cloaca in mealworms. Name the diseases caused by nematodes and the specific worms causing them. So we have here 6 diseases. The ascariasis, it is an infection of the small intestine caused by Ascaris lubricoides, which is a species of roundworm. The strongyloidiasis, it is a parasitic disease caused by nematodes or roundworms in the genus Strongyloides. The trichinelosis, also called trichinosis, is caused by eating raw or undercooked meat of animals infected with the larvae of a species of worm called Trichinella. The Dirophilariasis, it is the disease caused by Dirophilaria worm infections. In dogs, one form is called heartworm disease and is caused by D. imitis. These D. imitis adult worms can cause pulmonary artery blockage in dogs. The angiostrongyliasis, the infection is caused by Angiostrongyllus, a parasitic nematode that can cause severe gastrointestinal or central nervous system disease in humans, depending on the species. And lastly, the Asterobiasis, also known as pinworm infection, and is caused by a small, thin, white roundworm called Enterobius vermicularis.
Okay, so now let's proceed with the um, Pilum mollusca or the mollusk. This type of animals, they have soft bodies and they are invertebrate and it is covered by exoskeleton like yung sa mga shells ng snail, clams, and these shells are generally composed of calcium carbonate. So the mollusca have 7 classes. First is the Monoplacophora. Yung Monoplacophora, these are the type of animal that has single shell and an oral body. Then yung next is Aplacophora. These are the mollusk that has no shell or foot and it's look like a worm with long spicules. Then yung class Polyplacophora, it has shells with a mid-dorsal row and broad plates surrounded by fleshy girdles. Then yung then yung Scapopoda, they have shells and mantle slendery tubular and open both ends, as you can see in the number 4 picture. Then yung next is Gastropoda. They have univalves with shells, usually spiral, as you can see in the number 5, commonly with tentacles and eyes, with large foot for hold fast and creeping. Then next is the Pelicopoda. They have shells with 2 lateral valves, and they have no jaws or rodula, and they are commonly plate-like, as you can see in the number 6 picture. Then last is Cephalopoda. They have external shell, and they have large head. They have eyes, which are complex. They have mouth with horny jaws, and they have around 8 to 10 arms or tentacles. Then for the table, only the Neopilina is a monoplacophora. Then the Acanthozostera, Haliotis, Loligo, and Loligonautilus octopus are belong to Cephalopoda class, and only Teredo is a Pelicopoda, and only Dantalium and Sephara belong to Gastropoda. Then for the questions, for the number 1, what are the improve what are the improvements of the nervous system of the mollusks over those animal previously studied? So yung mollusks, they have a very complex nervous system. They have centralized brain, they have nerves throughout their bodies that are connected by pathways. And another example ng mollusk is yung octopus. As we all know, they have two heads. So we can clearly tell na yung nervous system nila is complex compared to the other discussed kinds of animals. Then their brains are connected by nerve fibers, and yung mollusks, they have long nerves that extend from this that extends to the throughout their body sa connected sa kanilang muscles, organ, and connective tissues. Then that can make them send messages from one part of the body without even moving at all. So for the question number 2, what structures are common to both clam and squid? So if titingnan natin, clam and squid are very different. Parang magkaiba talaga sila. But they both belong to a same phylum or phylum. So yung general ng mollusk is they are soft bodies. So they have no legs but some have tentacles. So both clams and squid have mantle, and this mantle is made up of soft tissue and has muscular band that enables them to contract to pump water and food throughout the mantle cavity. So for the third one is how pearls are formed. So we can see pearls in the phylum Mollusca because um, these pearls are made up of when a foreign particle is being trapped inside a mollusk. So it builds up as time goes by, and then eventually it will form a pearl. Then yung duration ng pag-form ng pearl is nagre-range siya from 6 months to several years. Next phylum is Annelida. So yung phylum Annelida, these are the segmented worms. So pag sinabi nating segmented, these are like separated, parang may segments sila into repeating units. And they are obviously invertebrates. So yung segmented worms, they have pre-oral segment, they have the prostomium, and they have hard spines or setae, and that is used for their locomotion. They are commonly found in soil, sand. They are sometimes marine animal that swims and can also be found in freshwater habitats. So first class is the Oligocata, which is the first picture, or yung earthworms, as you can see. Then yung Oligocata, they have segmented body. They have a clitellium or yung band. As pag nakita natin yung earthworm, we can see parang may band sila sa katawan nila. So it is called clitellium. And next is yung Hirodinia, or ito yung mga leeches or yung linta. So they have definite number of segments, approximately 33 or 34, with many annuli or annuli. Yung annuli, ito yung like circular rings. As you can see sa picture, parang line-line siya sa body ng leeches. They have also anterior and posterior suckers. As we all know, yung linta, they do suck blood. Then next is yung polycata. Yung polycata, they have numerous segment. Wala silang clitellium tulad nung sa first, yung parang band sa katawan. And they have what we call paropodia, or yung satae, or yung parang makikita nyo parang sa gilid-gilid ng kamay na sa sides nila that they use for locomotion. They also have eyes and tentacles. For the table, the Nereis and Serpula are both polycata, and Peritina is an oligocata, and Hirodinia is from Hirodini class. As you can see in the first picture, that is a Nereis. Then yung sa baba niya is Serpula. Meron silang parang tentacles or what na which is characterized by polycata. Then yung Peritina is oligocata or yung earthworms. As you can see sa picture number 10, nakita din natin yung clitellium niya, yung parang band sa part ng body niya. And then next is yung Hirodinia, yung sa fourth picture, yung linta. So they have annuli, as you can see, parang lines sa katawan nila. And for the questions, number one, what is the difference between segmentation of earthworms and tapeworms? So yung segmentation ng earthworm are different from tapeworms because earthworms segmented, they have head and tail. They contain eyes, mouth, and nostrils. And the tail has segments that can move independently from each other. Yung tapeworms naman, although they have segments, but it is not called annuli like sa earthworms because they don't have a true body cavity. They also yung lines sa katawan nila is tinatawag na proglottids. So when yung tape pag yung tapeworm kasi parasitic siya, yung earthworm is sa soil. So yung tapeworm pag nag-mature siya inside the intestine, these segments are yung proglottids, nag-break off siya and nagpa-pass siya into stool. So number two, what is the fundamental difference between the body cavities of earthworm and ascaris? The fundamental difference is that earthworm have single opening while the ascaris have several. And as I mentioned earlier, yung earthworm, they have true um, body cavities compared sa isa. And yung ascaris din, wala silang segmentation tulad sa earthworms. And for the third question, of what importance are earthworms to man? So, as we all know, earthworms play vital roles in our soil. They isa to sa indications na pag maraming earthworms, it means healthy yung soil na nakikita natin. So, they add nutrients to the soil, making it more fertile, and it also eat decaying plant and would otherwise make the ground more prone to erosion. Also important because they control pests such as grubs, slugs, and snails, which can damage which can damage plants, and they can also be used for decomposing or can be used as composing agents. Then now let's proceed to the next film.
Good morning. Am I audible po?
Yes, you are Zaid.
Yes po.
Thank you po. So good morning to each and every one of you. My name is Zayed bin Nazmiu Julkipli, and I am assigned to talk about the phylum Arthropoda. So first things first is that we need to know what is phylum Arthropoda is. So we have here are the characteristics that contains information about the phylum Arthropoda, and these are the following. Okay. So the phylum Arthropoda are terrestrial and aquatic forms. So yung meaning ng terrestrial are yung mga animals who live entirely on land, and yung aquatic forms are yung mga animals who live different kinds of water forms like seas, oceans, lakes, and river, etc. And the next one is the body is metameric or segmented, tripoblastic, and with bilateral symmetry. If you say bilateral symmetry, you can say that the body plan of an animal can be divided along a line that separate the animal's body into right and left halves that are nearly identical of each other. Next is the body is divided into three regions: a head, thorax, and abdomen. So, yung head and thorax are usually united into a cephalothorax. And another additional information about the head is that it has six somites. Next is the with jointed appendages. Legs vary from 5 to more pairs. Next is the exoskeleton is made up of chitin. By chitin, it is a polysaccharide that is the principal of component. Hello?
Rinig ka namin, Bes.
Oh, sorry. So to continue, by chitin, it is a polysaccharide that is the principal of components of the exoskeletons of arthropoda and the bodies of fungi. Next is the respiratory organ, and those are the gills, trachea, and the buccal. The next one is the body cavity or the hemosole, and it is filled with blood. The last one is the reproduction. The sexual and sexes are nearly always separate. And there are five classes of phylum Arthropoda, and these are the Arachnida, Crustacea, Diplopoda, Chilopoda, and Insecta. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have here are the table of illustrated Arthropoda and their classes. And the first one is the spider and scorpion that has the same class, and that is the arachnid class. Next is the millipede that has the class name Diplopoda. Next is the centipede that has the class of Chilopoda. Next is the Pineus that has the class of Crustacea. And the last one is which are the butterfly, grasshopper, ant, and dragonfly that has the same class of Insecta class. Next slide, please. So we have here is the phylum Echinodermata. So phylum Echinodermata is radically symmetrical columnate marine animals, including the starfish, sea urchins, and related forms. So if you mean by radically symmetrical, it is the condition of having similar parts regularly arranged around a central axis. So columnate is any animal possessing a fluid-filled cavity within which the digestive system is suspended, and so we have here are the four classes of phylum Echinodermata, and those are the Asteroidea, Ophiuroidea, Ornithoroidea, and the Crinoidea. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have here are the simple sketch of the specimens of phylum Echinodermata. Okay, so we have here are the classes of the classes of the the phylum Echinodermata. So for letter A is we have the sea urchin that has the class of Ophiuroidea. Next is the letter B, which is the sea lily that has the class of Crinoidea. Next is the sea cucumber that has the class of Holothuriidea. Next is the brittle star that has the same class of the sea urchin, the Ophiuroidea. And the last one is the common fish of class Asteroidea. Next slide, please. So we have here are the following questions that are answered by our group mates. To begin with question one, describe briefly the mechanism by which the starfish accomplish locomotion. So the answer that we have gathered was to explain locomotion, it is the movement or the ability to move from one place to another. And starfish uses locomotion, and for them to move, they use water vascular system, and water comes into system via the madreporite. So the meaning of madreporite is a perforated plate by which the entry of seawater into the vascular system of an echinoderm is controlled. To continue, it is then circulated from the stone canal to the ring canal and into the radial canals. So the radial canals carry water to the ampullae and provide suction to the tube feet. Then followed by question 2, what is meant by autonomy, regeneration? How do echinoderms illustrate this phenomena? So for our answer is that autonomy is existing and functioning as an independent organism, growing naturally or spontaneously without cultivation. So for the regeneration, it is a natural process of replacing or restoring damage of or missing cells, tissues, organs, and as well as our entire body part. Next, echinoderms
Okay,
does this.
Zaid.
Yes, well,
Okay, additional. Aside from the mentioned animals, no, the mentioned species, ano pang ibang species that are usually known for regeneration? Mga
um,
nakikita sa bahay, anong usually?
sa bahay,
Yes.
yung alam ko lang po is, ma'am, is yung like sa starfish po, ma'am. They use
Okay,
regeneration.
starfish. Okay,
Yes,
that's
po.
nice.
Butiki po.
Kapag nasa bahay, it's also the lizards, di ba? So,
Lizard.
especially yung mga kabataan, mahilig manghuli ng mga butiki. And then what do they do?
Yes, po.
Di ba? Tinatanggal
Alisin
yung
yung tails po.
tail, yung sa
Apo.
end part ng butiki. But, no, putulin yung buntot, yes. And then, Doon pinapakawalan na naman. And then after how many days makikita mo, no, if you will still see the same lizard, makikita mo na may tutubo na maliit na buntot ulit. So that is regeneration. So that also what characteristics meron ang mga echinodermata, no? Meron din sila. Yes, Lamia. Come again? Okay, sige. Okay, by mistake pala yung pag-ano. Okay, no? So, that is regeneration. So, this echinodermata, so katulad ng starfish or sea stars, no? Actually, starfish are not fishes, ha? Remember that? These sea stars, no, they also have these characteristics of being, no, they can do regeneration. So, kapag, di ba, they have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, parang mga fingers, no, that is used for locomotion. So, kapag maputol yan, it can still regenerate. It will still grow. Okay, proceed to number 3, Zaid.
Thank you po, ma'am. So for number 3, compare the type of symmetry found in the starfish with that of Hydra and Dugicia. So the answer that we have gathered was Hydras, like all cnidarians, display radial symmetry. It is possible for the Hydra to exhibit the two kinds of evenness simultaneously, as tetrameral symmetry can be worked around a radial plan. The next one is the Dugicia. So it exhibits cephalization. It has a triangular head with two prominent eye spots that give the appearance of flatworms being cross-eyed. The presence of two eye spots and lateral horns on the head indicated that the planarians has bilateral symmetry. Next slide, please. Okay, so for the next question, describe how a starfish captures and eats its prey. So for our answer is that starfish captures and eat their prey is to use their tiny suction cup tube feet, and they eat clams and oysters as they pry their shells and uses their sac-like cardiac stomach emerges from their mouth, and it oozes inside the shell, and the stomach then envelops the prey to digest it and finally withdraws back into its body. And the second to the last question is what is the economic importance of the ectoderms? So for our answer, ectoderms does this phenomena by using the autonomy. If one of its part is either missing or cut down, so the importance of the ectoderms for the economic is that it is very important to the economic, because they are used as food, medicine, and source of lime for farmers. And the last question is, why are the ectoderms sometimes considered the highest group of invertebrates? So ectoderms is considered to be the highest group of invertebrates because they have two major defining characteristics, and those are the water vascular system and the five-sided radial symmetries. Thank you for listening. I would like to call on the next reporter.
Next slide na po. Pa-next slide na po. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
So I will now proceed to discuss the phylum or the phylum Chordata. So first, I would like to discuss what is phylum Chordata. So yung mga phylum Chordata, ito yung mga animal na may flexible rod na nagsusupport sa dorsal part nila. Pag sinabi nating dorsal, it's the back part. So now, for the characteristics, so yung phylum Chordata lives on land, water, and air. So another with a notochord that serves as axial support during the embryonic stage. So yung notochord, ito yung cartilaginous skeletal rod na nagsusupport sa body nila. So if you say axial naman, yung meaning dito banda, yung sa chest banda pataas, ito yung axial part natin. So phylum Chordata also may presence of tubular type of nervous system. By the word tubular, yung shape ng nervous system nila is parang pa-tube. So another one is gill slits are found in the pharynx region nila. Also, yung phylum Chordata may ventral heart sila. If you say also ventral, yung ventral naman, yung meaning nito, yung heart nila is uh, nasa ventral side of ng body nila or nasa harap. Ventral means harap man. So, also, triploblastic bilaterally symmetrical. Yung triboplastic naman, this means na may three layer of embryonic cells, which are the ectoderm, mesoderm, and the endoderm. Phylum Chordata also, yung reproduction nila is generally asexual or sometimes asexual by budding. So yung budding more on ano siya, yung sa mga multicellular and unicellular organisms. So before discussing or answering the table, I would like first to discuss yung mga subphylum and the classes of Phylum Chordata. So for the subphylum, the first one is Hemichordata. So yung Hemichordata, ito yung mga worm-like na marine animals. Yung example niya, yung pag-search ko, yung lumabas una yung Balanoglossus. Yung itsura ng Balanoglossus, parang sperm siya na walang ulo. So the second one is the Urochordata. So yung Urochordata is nagko-compromise siya ng mga tunicates. Yung example nito ay yung mga sea peaches pati yung mga golden stars. The third one is the Cephalochordata, which are Amphioxus. Yung Amphioxus yung parang matulis siya. Yung parang yung both ends ng body niya is matulis. The fourth one is the Vertebrata. So yung Vertebrata from the word itself naman, ito yung mga common. Yung one example ng Vertebrata are humans kasi may backbone sila or yung bivertebrates. So for the classes naman, the first one is the Cyclostomata. So yung Cyclostomata, ito yung mga walang jaw or jawless sila. So yung pag-search ko sa examples ng Cyclostomata, yung first lumabas is yung hagfish. Yung wherein yung picture niya, wala siyang jaw. The second one is the Chondrichthyes. So yung Chondrichthyes naman, ito yung mga jawed fishes which are parang opposite siya ng Cyclostomata. Yung mga jawed fishes na may cartilaginous skeleton. One example is yung shark, The third one is the ostrich ties, which are adding characteristic niya is bony siya, yung mga isda na madaming buto, like mga salmons, mga eels. Yung sa amphibia naman, ito yung mga cold-blooded vertebrates, which yung example niya is yung frogs nga, usually yun yung general example sa amphibia. Excuse me. Yung sa fourth one naman, yung sa fifth one is yung sa reptilia. Ito yung mga air-breathing vertebrates. Yung example niya yung lizards. So, aves or yung aves. Pag search ko ng aves, yung first lumabas is birds. So, another word for birds pala is aves. So, yung one example of aves are yung mga owls, ganun. So, the last one sa classes is mammalia or the mammals. Ito yung mga warm-blooded vertebrates na may mammary glands. Usually may mammary glands pag sa females. Yung example niya, general example niya is yung human beings. Next slide, please. So, after discussing about the subphylums and the classes, we will now answer the table. So, yung sa Dolichoglossus, this falls under the subphylum of Hemichordata. For the Pandosia aurata, this falls under Urochordata. Then, so Branchiostoma lanceolatus, this falls under the subphylum of Cephalochordata. So, sa table 9 naman, sa classes, number 1 is the Phetromyzon marinus. This falls under the Cyclostomata. So, yung sa number 2, Scoliodon, this falls under the Chondrichthyes. Number 3, the Chanos, this falls under the Ostrich. Number 4, Bufo marinus falls under Amphibia. Number 5,
Okay. For a while, Fernando, this meet is about to end. I will be sending the next link we will be
Okay,
using, ha?
Okay,
Continue lang to again at table 9.
okay,
Everyone, please leave the meeting now and use the link that I will be